Were you there the day that Tim was telling me about an English pilot on the squadron who did a low pass and actually hit Tim in the back with the wing of the aircraft?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say it didn't happen.
He said everybody was sort of watching him do this low display, and everyone ducked as he came over, and Tim ducked too late and it scraped up his back. And
well, it could have been. Yeah, I would not. It's a Hawkeye was capable of doing it in good hands, but in this other first day that I mentioned, no show, he would get the book out. The book says don't do it. He wouldn't do it. But the other Davy Rowcliffe, he could do those things. Harry Vint took 2 feet off his wingtip, coming in over Whangarei on a power line. Somebody else cut off power to a cowcocky's cow shed. Met with the wrath of the CO when he came home. Lou Gates was our boss man. Little incidents like that for low flying, yes. And there was another instance where, and once again with Davy Rowcliffe, I was with him. We were way up North Auckland, way up by Kaikoui. There's a radio mast, very similar to what New Plymouth's got out here at Waiwakaia. Hawera had one down off Hawera there somewhere too. They had a very similar type of radio mast for transmitting the local station. And we were down at telegraph pole height. That was our job. Our job was to count the military traffic, the number of cars and trucks and motorbikes and military activity on the roads. We were zooming along there, and I next thing I heard we flipped over, saw this blinking radio mast, and I swear to this day that we flew through the guy ropes. I do. I honestly think that's what happened. We couldn't have. How could we fit through those? And I never ever had an opportunity to go back and have another look until about, what would be 15 years ago now. My son was up hiking and we went up to see him. And I stopped on the road to have a look. And sure enough, I tell you what, the top guy wire is missing. It's never been replaced. There's a top guy wire on the roadside is not there. The other one on the inside is. And I reckon that's the one we must have taken it out. You couldn't possibly fly through those ropes. No, so there's a couple of dangers that still survived.
It sounds like the Hind was a pretty tough aircraft in terms of being able to have accidents like that, taking the wingtip off. Oh yeah,
it was versatile. It wasn't plastic. It was tubular. No, it wasn't. It was angle iron, I think. The American stuff was tubular and all rounded and nicely smooth. You didn't get shove in. But the old Hawker Hind, I think from memory now, was more of an angular type material and covered with a cloth, linen, and then painted. The paint was thicker than the cloth. Yeah, but it was a sturdy plane in that respect. It was made for the job. And being an Army Co-op squadron, our job was, well, I suppose to put it in a nutshell, we carried on where they knocked off in 1918. If you read the stories of the Royal Flying Corps, I've forgotten what's the Trigger. There was a TV series there for Captain Trigger. Do you remember that now?
Wings.
That was the type of work we were doing, dropping supplies, landing out in the grass fields and things like that. A lot of low-flying stuff, miles of it. Yeah. So we did a lot of that. Well, we still came through it. We did. Like one day at a time, that time that I was telling you about with where we followed the surf line. We must have been low that day because when we got back to base, a bundle of sort of seaweed types off the beach, wrapped around one of the wheels. Yeah. Another one I can't remember. I think it was Len Hutton. I think Jock Leaf was his gunner for him. They came back from a flip over Hokianga. Now, I'm thinking back now, it was Jock's bit of ground. He got a bit of section up there on the Hokianga, Omapri, a place called Omapri. But until just the last few years, I realised that Omapri wasn't that Lake Omapri. There's another little township called Omapri, just along from Opunoni, about from here to Fitzroy, a couple of miles away, less than that. That's called Omapri, and that's what Jock said. I thought when he said they caught a tree at Omapri, I thought he meant by the lake. They come home with a big pine cone and the wingtips. So low flying was the thing to, it could be done. In good hands you could come home with it too. I don't remember anybody being killed or anything like that, no. We did a lot of dangerous jobs but got away with it. But as I said before, they were good pilots, and they all became fighter pilots. Oh yes, there was one dicey one I can recall, with a chap called Dublock Cameron. He was our deputy flight commander. Now that man was the oldest man on the station. He was actually ex-Spanish Civil War chap, Cameron, Bob Cameron. I've got him in the book here. Him and I used to fly a lot together too. We did a lot of gunnery exercises. We went out over Breamhead, up by the Wangray Heads, big towering rocks, and slightly upstream from there is a bit of a bay. We used to do our gunnery practice there, and the procedure was for the observer, or the gunner, the chap at the back, dropped a can of aluminium powder into the ocean, and that was the target. So I dropped this can of aluminium powder as requested or as required by the book, dropped it in and picked, and when it hits the water it spews out a big circle. And Dublock, I keep calling him Dublock because that's what I called him, he had these, we had nothing as far as eye goggles. We had sort of elastic covered dust goggles you have on a motorbike sort of thing. They fly off the first time you use them. Dublock had these ones from the RAF. They were real things, angler type things. And he had his turn and had to fire that. And he looked out, he called around, he yelled out, "Did you see that, Sergeant?" I was only a sergeant then. He said, "Where did they go?" He said, "Oh, we'll have another go." I said, hang on a minute. I waved him down. I said, "Don't do it." I was giving the indicator, he's flying through the prop. We had it was either 13 or 14 holes in that propeller. Wooden props, you see, they were wooden props. And he was flying through the prop. Fair dinkum, we staggered home at low level, we staggered up over the hill, didn't dare go in, didn't speed it up, he skipped. We landed up the field, and he taxied up to the end where the armourer's shed was. He got out, he never even took his parachute off or anything, just waddled out there with a big parachute dangling behind his backside, and said he stir the bringing daylights out of those armourers. I was only a young fellow out of school, and I thought I had good marks in the Queen's English, or King's English. I did, yeah, I had good marks in English. And I heard words that day that I never knew existed. And the old public works hut that they had for shed, for the armoury gear and tool shed, it was just trembling, shaking. Had Cooperluva windows, and they all rattled. He was thumping the floor and he was laying down the law, and from what I can remember he was blaming them for endangering my life, not his. He'd been through the Spanish War, and if he got the chops, so be it. Virtually coming towards the end of the time at Onerahi, the threat of invasion had receded, and there was more important things to do. The Aussies were having their troubles up the Kokoda Trail, is it? Up in New Guinea. And we were sent to Gisborne with the promise that there'd be TBF aircraft made available for us for torpedo work. So we shot off over to Gisborne. And the grapevine, I suppose you'd call it, the guff was that where they were expecting 33 1/3% losses. It didn't go down too well with us at all. We were not to have any final leave. We were going to go straight to Gisborne, do this pressure course, and by that time the planes were here and we'd shoot over to give the Aussies a hand. That was the guts of the changeover. Close anyway, get to Gisborne, learn how to use the things and shoot over. Right, we get to Gisborne all right, but before we went, no final leave bugged us. A chap called Red Hanna, he was our oldest man. He got a DFM later on for shooting down the Japs and that. He was a good shot, just the same. He had the furthest to go, so we worked out how long it would take him to go home. He lived at Winton, a place called Winton, out by Invercargill somewhere. I had to go to the middle of the North Island. Bert Douglas had to go Butaru, which is not far away too. We all had different distances. So we made an agreement we would meet 7 days hence in Palmerston North Railway Station and just take French leave. Give us time to go home and say for Red to go all that way home and back again. Of course, him take 10 days, so you take a bit longer. So he would need that extra time. So based on his travel arrangement, we would meet at Palmerston North. No leave pass, nothing. We just disappeared, and we did. We could have been court-martialed. There's no doubt about it, but when you look back. But that's all history now, and I can disclose it now. Because even the wing commander, Geoffrey Bentley, remember that? I knew him as a corporal at Onirahi, and he became the senior rank, not platoon officer, he wasn't an officer. He was the senior rank as a corporal in charge of the breaker. All the pilots had gone, all the CO, the adjutant, the whole lot, had all been posted off, all these gunner boats, all the aircrew had been posted off, and Jeff had to answer signals from Wellington. They didn't send telegrams, they sent signals in those days. Where are these gunner boys? Where have they got to? They're supposed to be in Gisborne. Where are they? And poor old Jeff had to field all these, he couldn't answer them. He didn't know where they were either. We all disappeared, just went. And when eventually we stuck to our pact, we called it a pact. We stuck to our pact, we did meet at Palmerston North on that time, the date and everything. Got to Gisborne in the middle of the night, pouring with rain. Nobody expected us, because middle of the night, railway chaps were closing down because that was the last train for the day. He said, I'll ring the station. So he had to ring somebody, woke him up in the middle of the night to get a truck to come and pick us up. Little truck arrived, had to make 2 trips. Pouring with rain to take us out to the airfield. When we got there, there was no bunk ready for us, no bed. They didn't even know we were coming. And the orderly room, I suppose, the orderly chap who's on orderly duties, they have a duty, orderly, and his job was to get us in some shelter. He put us in a blinking racecourse, out at the racecourse where the horses were, a bit of hay. He made our bunks out of hay. That was our introduction to Gisborne. Yeah, and the next day we had to go meet the big CO, Agar, I think was his name, Agar. And fair dinkum, he understood. As soon as we explained to him why, that we were under the impression we were going to do this pressure course and go straight through to, with 33 1/3%. Out of 9, that's right, there was 9 of us, that's right. 3 of us weren't going to come home. We didn't like that idea at all. That was the guts of it. And he just, like a wet rag, he don't do it again sort of thing. He never made a scene, he understood. And it wasn't Well, it was just about in order, I suppose, forthwith. It depends on what you mean by forthwith. Well, we didn't have a fourth. We went without. Yeah. Just about everything was pronounced forthwith. But anyway, that was our introduction to that. We so happened there, the Venturas arrived first. The TPFs came later. 30 Squadron, I think it was, 30 Squadron we took. Dave Baldwin was a co-pilot for me in one job. He was in Gisborne with us, and he trained at Harvard doing a practice, practice dropping torpedoes and sort of thing. We'd go through the motions of it on that little island out in the ocean, and he came to grief. That's my memories. Oh, there's another interesting thing with Gisborne. The railway line went across the runway, and there were occasions when who gave way to who, that sort of thing. And I think the railway, or the control tower, always kept in touch with the railways of trains and the movements and that. And we taxied out on this, the first trip off to Gisborne, we taxied right across the railway line, shot up the other end, we had a couple of hundred yards further up, turned around there, we had to wait till the train gone past. Never forgotten that. Jacob Probert was the pilot, yeah. Now it's coming back to me. It was a Hudson, we took off in this Hudson, and I looked out the window, and here's the fuel pouring out the wing tank. They'd forgotten to put the lid back over the cap, threw the cap back, so I told the pilot to losing fuel out your starboard your tank. Strike, he shut down everything, whittled down and did a wheel and come back. Because we could have sucked ourselves dry, you know. The suction of the wind just sucks all that fuel out of your tank. Yeah, that was my memory of Gisborne.
So from there you went up to Whenuapai and joined the squadron, is it?
Yeah. As soon as the Venturas arrived, there was a need for crews for them first, so we were sent up there smartly. And even then we had bother, we had trouble with the undercut, so they said officially. But I think behind the scenes there was a serious problem with the fuel tanks, the fuel system. Our pilots didn't like it. I think there was, from memory, 5 taps to control the fuel to your engine. And they subsequently lost a couple because of that. We didn't lose any of ours for that reason, although one, I think, was one that came to grief up on Florida, I think was the cause of that. They traced it, the engineers traced it to the baffles. And of course the bogey gets around it with sabotage, there's all sorts of rumours, you know, nobody can prove anything. But our engineers were smart enough to know that whatever was done, whether it was intentional or not, was wrong. At any rate, fix it. You know, the New Zealanders will fix a thing. They won't get a newie like the Yanks do. The Yanks throw it away, get a new. I've had that experience too. But that's how the problem came with the fuel tanks, and I think that was more serious than the so-called fracture of a bolt in the undercart. I think was official talk about what happened. That's not right. Yeah, so that's where the Venturas come in.
And how long were you training there for before you...
Oh, not very long. I think we were intended to have a month, but I think it extended a bit because of this fuel system, and we were there a little bit longer. We got away on the 13th of October, is it? On that notice up top there, 13th of October.
Who was your crew that you were put into?
The captain was Tom Mounsey. He was a flight lieutenant then. We all got ranks, different ranks as the years went by. I don't know whether it was Noel or Jack or O-double-R. Jack, I think was his first name. He was our navigator, but George Corte took over from him. That's right. I think Jack was time expired. He'd done his 3 tours or whatever it was. And George Corte, K-O-R-T, with E with a little funny thing on top. And he was a farmer from away over in Teefighty, a place called Teefighty over in Gisborne, in that area somewhere. I haven't seen George from that day to this. Whether he's still alive even, I don't know. The radio operator was Ken Ward. He was our little fella, and I think he died in England. He went back to England, and last I spoke to him was at a function in Auckland, years after the war. I caught up with him, and he was doing a lot of good work for the handicapped people. You know, that seemed to be his contribution to civilian life and welfare and things like that. He was a welfare chap, did a lot of welfare work. You know. I was the turret gunner. Ken Camel, now he married a Canadian girl, and I think, from memory, when the war finished, he'd gone back up there. No, he broke a leg up in the Pacific, that's right, he had a broken leg, he fell out of a jeep or some damn thing, and we had to get another chap in a hurry. And so this is a little bit of sideline here, how people's lives cross. Out of the blue, this chap come, we took him with us. I'd been to school with him in the boarding school days, you know, Joe Hoy. He didn't make the grade too well, even after the war. I don't know his background really, but Joe seemed to use me as a model what to do. I don't like saying it, but the more I think of it, I think it's true. He came from Christchurch, he belonged to Christchurch. Somehow or other he found that I was here in New Plymouth, and he came to New Plymouth. And I was going to night school in those days to learn my trade. I took on a trade, you see. When the war had finished, you had a lot of catching up to do. What are you going to do? What are you going to be when you grow up? You can't be a wartime old bloke all your life, you know, you've got to do something. Well, I faced life as it was, and I wanted to be a tradesman. Joe tried to follow my footsteps a wee bit, you know, that type of thing, and somehow or other he didn't make it here, but I heard later that he did in Christchurch. He went into carpentry work down there, and he worked with the, who was it? I think it was the post office or he did a lot of carpentry, goodwill stuff, you know. As a public servant, he went back into the public service for some reason. It must have been with the, mind you, the post office had people too, that's right. It could have been a post office job. And he died. I never knew he'd died either until years later. Snuffed out. But he came with me on 2 or 3 trips up in the Pacific. Yeah.
So can you tell me about when you left Whanuapai for the trip north?
Yeah, well, we didn't know how far these ventures could go. We put drop tanks on them. You'd see in that photograph up there, there's drop tanks. That gives you another 60 gallons each, I think they were, 60-gallon tanks. Gives you another couple of hours of flying time, and we used them. Took full load, full flow. We got as far as Norfolk the first day. It seems silly now and seems pathetic, and it probably is, but our pilots didn't take risks. They assessed things accurately. We didn't have calculators and press a button and all this sort of computer and all that. That hadn't even been invented. You had to nut it all out and do your homework. We got as far as Norfolk first hop. We left about lunchtime, I think, from memory, and had a lunch of tea over there. When we arrived, I liked the smell of the place. I smell oranges. We woke up in the morning, there's oranges. I said, gee, where are these oranges? I was fruit hungry. Liked oranges. Yeah. But we stayed the night and had a look around. Took off next day and we got to Tontuta. It's on New Caledonia. do a hop over to there. We were intending to stay the night there. But nobody liked the smell of the place. And I didn't like the taste of the food and the stuff. It was the first taste of grape juice, you know. I didn't mind grapes. I didn't like the damn things, but I never heard of grape juice. That was all you had to drink grape juice. It didn't go down too well, and one thing led to another. Nobody seemed to say, well, somebody put up the stairs, why don't we just keep going to Santos? Keep going. We probably, you know, they got the feel of the plains and the distance, and their calculations were okay, that they would get the mileage out of them, because to go to Santos from Tontouta was a bigger hop than, say, from Norfolk to and they were quite confident that the plane could do it. So we hopped off up to Santos. We got to Santos. They had a bunk there for us and all that. See, when you've got 30 blokes in a hurry, there's another 30 mouths to feed, 30 hats, 30 beds, 30, you know, logistics have to be planned. You can't just drop in on them. Because we struck that later on, I think. That happened time again, yeah. But that's a different story. That was the first time I saw fireflies. You know, you remember things that you first see for the first time, and that was it. It's like me, I can remember that firefly flipping past me like as if it was last night. Same thing, like, they're vivid. Same as King Smith flying over. So when you see it for the first time, it sticks with you. You might see hundreds of them since, but not that first one. So that was my memories of Santos. Didn't impress me a lot. It was a big Navy base then. It was a big base then, huge. Now they call it Vila, I think. Vila was the headquarters around the corner. But we never went to Vila, we went to Santos. Espirito Santo. And then from there we hopped off and got to Hendersonfield. And I always remember the pilots, Tom Mounsey and Ken Ward, saying that the change that had taken place from the time they were there before on Hudson's, you see, and they could remember what it looked like. And it had been tidied up and made a bit more homely, and I think they had toilets on the field or something or other. They didn't in those days. I forget what happened. But they were quite noted in their comments about how the camp has changed and everything. But they took us up, our camp was away up on what they call Bloody Knoll, or Bloody Ridge, I forget what the correct term was, Bloody Knoll or Bloody Ridge. And George Corday, he was a warrant officer, that's right. He was our leading ground crew in the hut. Each crew had its own hut where possible, and that was mainly to avoid waking everybody up. If you're all in different huts and same crew, different huts, you're waking a whole heap of people up just to get there. And we learned how to tie your boots together. That was another thing I learned. Didn't take long to learn that one.
What was that for?
Mosquitoes might pinch them. Because when you got up in the morning, you could only find one. If you tied two, the mosquitoes couldn't carry them. That's my story. Now, basically, the idea was that if anybody had to get away in a hurry, anything in the road, they'd just kick it out of the way. It might be your boot, you got kicked out the door and you can't find it. That's the guts of it. It would help to keep the thing tidy, so you only had to look for one. You got both.
That's a good idea.
Little things like that we learnt in a hurry. Talking about that Bloody Knoll place, though, it had a peculiar smell about it, like all jungles do, musty and funny, but when the rain came it was worse. And then one day we see bones and things flying down the gutters. We found that there had been 600 bodies been buried there during the early part of the war. There'd been a big battle up there. They call it Bloody Knoll. That's where we were camped. But, well, we survived.
What was your first patrol like from there?
wasn't memorable. To me, all I can remember is that we had to test our guns, of course. You always test those. You take nothing for granted. Took off. It was a coral runway, coral ground, like a metal footpath, you know, rolled and smoothed down, and had the maintenance boys there rolling it all the time, wetting it to keep water. And I think the Yanks had got the hang of how to bond the coral, crush the coral and bond it with oil. They used a diesel type oil, and when it got wet and that, the gravel was enough to give it grip and all that. It didn't slip and didn't get boggy and that sort of thing. Later on we had those mesh type up at Bougainville. We got to Bougainville. Yeah, that was a different thing there. But the first trip I had was nothing startling. We went out, everything worked all right, guns tested okay, petrol seemed to work all right, and we came home again. There wasn't much, you know. We mainly do surveillance for shipping, looking for odd ships and things. Later on, when got into the real fighting war, I call it the fighting war, then it was different.
Well, can you tell me about the more exciting trips that you did?
Yeah, I can tell you one in particular, and I think it happened while we were at Henderson Field. This was the Americans, it was really full on for Rabaul. The battle for Rabaul was on, and that was part of it. And you probably heard about all the ships that got sunk off Savo Island and Iron Bottom Sound and all that. That was just we could see all that from where we were, from where we were camped. But the Japs seemed to know when there was a raid coming to Rabaul. Somehow or other the Japs were ready for us every time. And the coast watchers were given the task of locating the Jap lookouts or radio watch places, and they found one on Choiseul, a place called Choiseul. I've got the charts there somewhere. And we were given that job to go and knock it off. The coast boys did find the coast watchers. The coast watchers haven't been given a lot of history, a lot of publicity of what they did. They were valuable, fair dinkum. They were. And we took one of them with us. He explained this to us. We met him on the strip there, where they'd found this station, Jap radio station. Finished explaining it, and he had a bit of difficulty with his English and that, so we bundled him in the plane, took him with us. Quicker. When he said that the best time to hit them was between 5:45 and 6 o'clock in the morning. That's when the Japs go down to this little stream, do their morning ablutions or wash up and clean up, wake up and get out and then back to work, you know. And that was the best time, between 2:45 and 2:15, I think was the time. Now, for us to fly from Henderson Field to find the place, locate it and do the job, we had to get away stream. So we put him in, took him with us. And on the way, he was a fuzzy, I call him Fuzzy Wuzzy, he was a native, one of the natives. And he had nothing to do, you see. It was about 2.5 hour trip, and he was a bit bored. So I said to Ken, I said, he's a bit bored, fidgety. You can't give him a job to do because he didn't know his way ahead. I don't think he'd ever been in an aeroplane. He just sat down there in a big huddle. So we stuck a pair of headphones on him, plugged it into there, and Ken tuned into 2UE Sydney. Music come bellowing out there, his eyes opened out like that, his mouth opened up. He'd never heard music come out of a head, out of a hat. And I thought he'd bitten his tongue, you know. Everything was red. His whole mouth inside was red, and I thought, strike, the poor bugger's bitten his tongue. He chewed it off. He had nothing to do, you see, and fidgeting and that. And I thought he was nervous. But it was that beetle nut. They chew that beetle nut stuff, and it's sort of, I'd never seen it before. Never forgotten that. But we did the job. We hit the blink and knocked them out. And the reports came later. It's in another chap's diary. He wrote about a similar thing. They did have reports back of first aid bandages and a bit of blood, that sort of thing. So we did do some damage and smashed the place down. It was at the top of Choiseul. So that was one of the exciting ones, but the most exciting one and the most hair-raising, I call it the longest 10 seconds of my life. 10 seconds doesn't sound long, but it was a long 10 seconds that night. We were given a job to do and Jock was in that one too. He went through on their own. They didn't hear the call back. They went straight through, did their part. But it was 5 Venturas were selected to do a mine-laying job, magnetic mine, in the Buka Passage. The Buka Passage is a stretch of water no wider than perhaps the Wanganui River from the Wanganui Bridge to the sea. It wasn't much wider. There might have been a mile or either way. That's how wide it was. And it was a shortcut for the Jap ships to supply Rabaul. If they didn't get through there, they had to go right round, you see. So they were using it as a submarine and cargo shortcut to Rabaul. And our job was to drop these mines in there, so they planned all this. Away we go. It was a nighttime job. There was 85 planes in the air that night. Oh, no radio communication, no lights. Just get up there. Everything was planned, and we were to drop our mine 10 seconds past the jetty. Right. What happened? We get halfway up the side of Bougainville there, and there's a recall from base. You couldn't see the plane. All you could do is see the next plane to you. You could just see the slight glow from the exhaust pipes. That's how we kept station with each other. And I think one of the Yanks broke radio silence, and I think that's what called us off. We ought to all come home. Jock and his crew, they never heard that recall. They went on, and they were waiting at the entrance to the Buka Passage too for the time to go in. Nobody turned up, so they went in and did their job and came home. Came back the other way, so we could fly right through. So anyway, we came back. Now, that mine was like bigger than that sofa. That sofa's it was about 10 inches clearance from the bomb bay. You couldn't close the bomb bays. The bomb doors were open. Couldn't close them. It was too big. So we took off with that damn thing sticking out. Got all the way up there, and then had to come back with it. And there was the problem. Tom gave us the crew the opportunity that we bail out, he'd take it in, or we risk it. We stuck with it. Tom's decision. We trusted him that he could fly the damn thing. We flew ours in. I think it was Holmes, Dudley Holmes, dropped his in the swamp out from Munda. This was all taken off from Munda, I think. We dropped it from, we were at Henderson Field, the previous one. Next time, this Munda, that's the next stop, further up. Now, and as far as I know, that's where that magnetic mine's still there. I don't know. If it is, it's not out of the shipping lane, you see. It was no good dropping them out in the ocean. You could blow your own ships up. So we brought ours home and took off again the next night and did the job properly. So there was only 3 of us left out of the 5. Jock had gone through, dropped theirs. The other one dropped his in the swamp. So there was still 3 to go. So we took off the next night, and 10 seconds past the jetty, and I counted me 10 seconds. I said, come on, Tom, drop the damn thing, let's get out of it. Because the tracer was going over the top. There was an airstrip on each side, and the Yanks, 85 planes, they were doing a mock raid on, it was a diversion. They were diverting the attention from us for what we were doing, to blowing their blinking airfields up, you see. But the tracer was, somebody had spotted the first plane go through, and next thing there was a tracer going under. We were flying under an umbrella. And all this 10 seconds, counting all the time, another jetty comes along, another 10 seconds. Which jetty are they talking about? And up on the high ground at the top, I can remember that as clear as anything, there was a light, seemed to be looking down on us. Up on top of Bougainville, there's very high ground, might be 3,000 feet high, and this light seemed to be a big eyeball in the sky looking at us, watching everything we did. And I said to George, I said, I wish they'd get somebody to go knock that light out up there, because I thought that they could see us. We could hit, they didn't like that on here. And and as we get towards the far end, the tracer started coming towards us as well as over the top, and there was a pear-shaped island ahead of us. And it was tracer come from all directions. But Tom held his cool and got us out of it. Climbed out of that. We came down the other side of Bougainville, and there was a hell of a battle going on down below. Empress Augusta Bay. That's where they made the landing on Bougainville, and that was happening at the time. And there was a tanker on fire just off the shore. So we flew over. Our job was to stick at 5,000 feet, I think it was. I forget from memory now, and 5 or 6 miles off the coast. We diverted a wee bit to have a look at the ship on fire, and all of a sudden it blew up. And next thing, all the sky lit up again. There was an American destroyer having a go at us. Oh, when those American ships, when they let go every damn thing. Tracer going, it was like a big hose. Non-fighting war, I call it. That was the tidy up stuff, surveillance and so on. When I first joined the Catalinas, I had to meet them at Mechanics Bay. That's right, the signal I had was to attend at a certain time, Mechanics Bay in Auckland. And I met the crew and everybody there all waiting. It was an aircraft all tied up at the wharf and everything. We got aboard. There was only room for me left. So we staggered into it. We got this plane out. The way we went, we took off. In those days there was no Auckland Bridge. That didn't exist. Hadn't been invented, hadn't been built. And we taxied away to blazes down through the harbour for miles. I thought, well, we're going by boat this time, not going to fly. And anyway, turned into wind and then we took off. And we trundled and trundled and trundled and trundled and trundled and trundled again. Up and for miles, and she just wouldn't leave. We were too loaded down, so heavy, with a chock-a-block with tucker and food and goodies and things for the boys up in the tropic. So we had to turn around and do another trip, and Bob Tuffy was our engineer, calculated. He was busy working it all out and start again. And they worked it out that the amount of fuel that we'd used on that particular first run would have equaled so much. They got ways of working that out. I don't know how they did it, but they did. And they reckoned that the amount of weight then would be the equivalent might get them off. So they had another go. And away we go again, way back down to where we started, which took us the best part of half an hour just taxiing down there and then zoomed back again. Away we staggered into the sky. Eventually she bounced up. They bounced it. She just staggered there and just held its breath, sort of. Got another puff, another bit more. Inched it up, inch by inch by inch by inch. You see, you've got to leave enough space to be able to land again. You can't change course and come back again. Once you've got airborne, you've got to keep her up, keep her going. So they kept her going. Up she went, and we staggered into the sky. And then, well, eventually we got to a place called Tulagi. I think we went non-stop all the way. Yeah, that was a long introduction to flying boats. The noise didn't appeal to me at all. It didn't. Bad enough for the Venturas, but that damn thing rattling off the water. And then when we landed, it was the same thing in reverse. We splashed down. But I got used to them. And my time there, I still had to, you've got to fit into a different type of flying system, timing, and the trips, they weren't just a morning trip or afternoon trip, it was a whole day trip. You come over, you deck off at daybreak, you'd be home at dusk sort of thing. They were long range stuff. And well, at the end of the day, what have we done? Done nothing. You know, we just stooged up and down the slot. We called that the slot. It was supposed to be counting ships and things, but there was no fighting work about it. There was no bombing around, anything like that. But there was one job we had to do, and you've got to realise in those days, it wasn't just the natives that suffered there. There was all sorts of habitation besides that. There was a hospital on Malaita. I think it was Malaita, is it? Malaita? Yeah, Malaita. There was a hospital there, and of course their supply system stopped because of the war. But the Royal New Zealand Air Force would, in its kindness, I suppose, I don't know whether we were obliged to do it or not, but I suppose we kept them going with mail, we kept them going with supplies if necessary, and one thing or another. And we took this load of supplies to them one day, and we landed out in the ocean. It's not like on an airfield, there's a runway, and there's no marks, there's no marker boys, who didn't know what was down below the waterline. So we landed away out in the ocean there, and these natives come paddling out in their two pontoon canoes, sort of, you know, sort of an outriggers. They paddled their way out, and they all seemed to be down at water level. When they got to us, they were full of sacks of fruit. That's what kept them so low in the water. They brought us out on the swap over, a load of fruit or a load of vegetables or a load of mail or whatever we had. They knew we'd brought something, so they brought out sacks of bananas and limes and pawpaws and all sorts of tropical fruits and things. So we made a swap over out in the middle of the ocean. But it was a strange part of the war to me. So I've been out there, I was sort of trained to hit things. Got there and had a munchable banana instead. It seems silly, but it's true. Now Dave Tribe was another chap that had a similar experience, except that they had to go and pick up a hospital patient. Now I'm not certain which island they went to, but it was still occupied with the Japs, or the Japs that knew that they were there and they attacked them, and they had to get the hell out of the place. I can't recall all the details, but I know he was involved in one of those missions or jobs where you could get people to safety. It's a search and rescue safety type of thing. Safety-wise, we were pretty lucky. We did a Green Island operation where we softened up the place before the New Zealand troops went in. That was a big deal for us. I think there was four of us went in, two each way. We got to Green Island was a lagoon type place with like a horseshoe, and we went in at the entrance of the horseshoe type. Two went one way, two the other, and we didn't bang into each other type of thing. But I know on that job, the Japs were still on it, but there was no opposition. I saw this little mission church there, and I said, "Strike, I wonder if the Japs are using that as a depot," because one of the planes, he went over that way, and they were going to bomb that, and I said, "I hope they don't bomb that church, there's no need to, you know." And anyway, we went the other direction, we settled found a barge. So we dropped the whole 6 bombs on the damn thing, cleaned it out. There didn't seem to be much else, not much activity anywhere. There was no opposition coming up or anything, so we cleaned up this barge. Now years later, the New Zealand troops, 3rd Division, 30th Battalion, my brother was in the 30th Battalion in Vella La Vella, and I used to keep in touch with them by newspapers. We used to drop newspapers. We could get newspaper up from New Zealand. They might be a week old, And anyway, I dropped a load off over to the fellow in the strip. My brother, with the message from my brother Gordon, we gave him his address and the group he's in. He got the message. And plugged me down. When we came home, he came home before me actually. He knew we had been up to Green Island because he was on the detail that went there and he saw the Venturers doing the job. And this sunken barge, and he cut a piece of the barge off. I've got it under the house here, and I'm going to make a pen holder or something out of it. It's in the back of my mind what to make, and I just can't think what to make out of it. So it's only a bit of Oregon, really, tarred, but it came from a Jap barge off Green Island. Now, he told me that barge was just, there was nothing startling about it, but it was full of push bikes. Now, what were the Japs going to do with push bikes up in the jungle? You ask, you work that one out. I've had my thinking on that thing, you know, what the hell would a barge load of push bikes be doing up there? They were going to take over somewhere. In our own coast in New Zealand, I suppose they could land on 90 Mile Beach. That's all they have to do, because nobody lives up there. They make an easy landing, they could stick them on push bikes and they'll be down here for breakfast or something. But it's all conjecture. Nobody knows. Nobody wants to know anyway. But a bit of history. So, I had a cousin that was in an army in Green Island too. Now there they had trouble, there was a few casualties to dig the graves and things like that. It was no easy matter. I think they had to blast them out with grenades or something. They used some military ammunition to blow the holes out in the coral. The coral was so hard. The water, later on I went up in 9 Squadron, they had an airstrip there by then, and chap named Flossie Flowers was in our hut with us. He came to grief. He had the brakes on and she wouldn't stop. He was right up to the cliff edge of the cliff and balanced on the end of it, just about toppled over the top. And now he was taken home because he went tropper, he went berserk. And that's my remembering of Green Island. The problem of knocking up the graves and the trouble of short runway to land and everything.